Does it matter which version of a piece of classical music you listen to? Take these 4 notes, the most famous 4 notes in classical music. And here is another version. The more you listen to classical music, the more you realise how different recordings can be. It's not just the conductor, the artists, the interpretation, the instrumentation, the venue, it's the microphones, the recording, the mixing. If even those 4 notes can sound so different, that suggests, yes, it does matter very much which recording of a classical music piece you listen to. However, there aren't just 2 versions available out there, there's thousands, which seems to suggest, nah, the recording doesn't really matter. Yes, no, it's a fascinating question about which I've changed my opinion a number of times over the years. Allow me to explain. When I first got into classical music, I'd nicked a few LPs from my dad, and honestly, I couldn't have given a flying fart which version I was listening to. In fact, I'm not even sure I knew different versions existed at that stage. So clearly at this stage, no, the recording didn't matter to me at all. However, the more I listened to my new records, the more I became wedded to the recording I was playing incessantly. Now, as I started listening to more classical music, I started hearing new versions of the music I knew so well, and these new versions sounded awful, repellent. Tempo is the thing that gets you most at this stage. A slow version of something that you used to fast drags so much. So, by now, yes, it did matter which version I listened to. It mattered a lot. However, as I heard more and more versions of a piece, I started to realise something. Okay, a version was annoying because it didn't do something the way you liked it in your original, but there was always something else, something different to take your interest. This was the stage when I started to realise there is no perfect version of a piece of classical music. Recordings and performances are vehicles, methods of transport to bring the music to your brain. The different versions were different ways to get to the same endpoint, the music itself, which became more important to me than the performer or the recording. No, the recording no longer mattered so much to me. However, this is not saying performance and recording isn't important to classical music. It's critical. Unlike pretty much every other art form, you have to experience classical music being performed to experience it at all, or at least I do. Perhaps the nearest equivalent is a play, but I can read a play and get a pretty good idea of what's happening. I can read music, but a score I've never heard before? Forget it. There's even been occasions when a particular recording has opened up a piece for me for the first time. For example, Beethoven's Missa Solemnis, a piece I never really got on with until I was recommended a Klemperer version, which genuinely made the piece accessible to me for the first time. Recording quality is another big one for me. I'm sorry, I can't listen to those old scratchy Furtwängler or Toscanini recordings without shuddering. And it's not just the recording either, it can even be the mix. For example, I never liked my first copy of Rigoletto. I just assumed it wasn't a very good opera, until one day I happened to browse one of those books you used to have to review classical CDs. My Rigoletto had a terrible review, saying they'd mic'd the performance badly, giving far too much prominence to Pavarotti's voice. Yes, the review was right. It's an unpleasant mix, too much Pavarotti. This was why I hadn't liked my original Rigoletto, an opera I now love. Which all seems to suggest, yes, it is very important which version you listen to. However, these are events from the past, when I only owned one version of Rigoletto. The march of technology has transformed everything for me. Now, I have dozens, even hundreds of versions available, free, at the click of a mouse button. So, if anything bugs me about a recording, I'll just click on a new one. Shostakovich said no performance ever sounded as perfectly to him as it did in his own head. Different recordings are always different variations on a theme. There doesn't need to be a perfect version. Often, listening to new versions opens you up to new different moments within a piece that sound amazing. You just need to open your ears up. So, where I stand, or at least sit today, is, yes, the recording matters, but only in that it's competently played and recorded. Beyond that, I've got to say, I actually enjoy listening to new versions, the older and the greyer I've got. Yes, those versions can sound so different, but
Vive la différence!
Please like and subscribe.